Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, we welcome you again to Deen Talks. This is the second season of Deen Talks between Islamic Center of Yorba Linda and Shura TV. Last season, which was focused on mental health, and many of you enjoyed those sessions that we had. They are on YouTube. If you want to watch them again, go to Shura TV YouTube channel, and you'll see all these sessions and episodes from last season with amazing and esteemed guests who joined us at those sessions. Today we start a new season for Deen Talks, and the focus on a little bit different. It's going to be more about politics. As we all know, we are approaching a very important date this year in November, which is the elections, the election season, the presidential elections. And this is maybe one of the most important elections in the past several decades because of what we see going on in Gaza and in the Middle East and locally and all that. So many Muslims been asking, what is the guideline that we follow when it comes to elections? How do we deal with the candidates, how we deal with the bills, how we vote, and how can we get a balanced voting guide or voter guide that we can follow? Now, this is not going to be necessarily answered in today's session or in sessions at large, because we as Islamic Center of Yorba Linda, a non-profit organization, we cannot endorse candidates. But what we'll be talking about, we'll try our best to talk about what is the best way to get involved as a community with this election process. We'll try to tackle it from all kinds of political sides. We will have people from the left, people from the right, people from the Democratic Party, people from the Republican Party. We'll have mostly Muslims who got engaged in politics and they were actually elected and ran campaigns. Muslims who've been involved with the American politics for many, many years. So we will have many of those great guests with us in these sessions from now till October, inshallah. So when the election day comes, we all vote with intelligence, with knowledge, and without being, without missing that important duty, and without making wrong decisions, inshallah, when we do that. Also, it's important for us to understand from an Islamic perspective, what is the perspective, what's the ruling of participating in the elections and the Democratic Party, running, voting, and all that. We'll get to that as well, inshallah, and we will be repeating those answers all the time. Every session, at the end of the session, we'll open it for Q&A. So those who like to have any questions at the end, write them down, type them on your phone, and inshallah we'll have time afterwards to answer those questions. Today's guest, we are extremely honored. We are extremely fortunate to have with us one of the most experienced and senior politicians, Muslim Arab Palestinian politicians here in America. We have our dear sister Rima Nashashibi, who's been doing a lot of work in politics for over, I don't want to give out your age, but over 20 years at least. I can say safely over 20 years, right?
You put a lot of pressure on me.
So sorry, but
the most extreme politician experienced in the U.S. No.
Among our community, you started in politics when it was still not a popular thing within our community. And we want to learn from experience, and that's why we're having you here with us today. So let us first spend a few minutes, learn a little bit about your background. Where were you born? Where did you go to school? And where and why did you start getting engaged in politics? And then I'll get to the next question. So first of all, welcome to the Islamic Center of Yorba Linda. It's not your first time to be here, I know. And we are very happy to have you with us. And you're from a city that's dear to all of us. You're from the city of Jerusalem, that all of us love and care about. So tell us a little bit about your background so we can get into how we talk about politics.
So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here among all of you, sisters and brothers. And wanted to share, as Dr. Soboh suggested, a little bit about my background. I was born in Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem, my father got a job offer at the Ministry of Public Works in Kuwait. So in let me not date myself. So we moved to Kuwait, and then after that we moved to Lebanon, and I went to the American University in Beirut, and I graduated from there. And because of the Civil War, again, we're dating ourselves, because of the Civil War, we moved back to Kuwait, and I worked there. And after that, we came to the US. I came initially in 1980, and my parents followed in 1981, because my mom came here in 79, bought the house, went back, and then I came in, and my job was to make sure that the house is refurbished, so when they come in, all is ready and done. So that's when I came, and I became a citizen in 1985. Both my brother and I, my younger brother and I, and I registered as a Democrat immediately, and my younger brother registered with the other party.
You have to be fair. You have to mention all names for liability. We cannot mention one name and ignore the other.
No, it was like a comedy act between the both of us. I mean, we raised $150,000 when I was the community chair at UCI for MESI, Middle East Studies Student Initiative. And we wanted a program for the students to get involved in Middle East, Arabs, Muslims, non-Arabs, and they called it MESI. But we did a skit. We had a fundraiser, and Tony Shalhoub, the actor, was there. And the skit was you, the Republican, me, the Democrat, and we did that, and we raised $150,000. Nice. Now, the fun part is when they called us and asked us, let's say the newspapers, something happens in the Middle East, and they call us, and the first one who calls back gets, of course, published. So the first time I called back first, and so they asked me after the question, they said, what about your Republican brother? And I said, you know, my parents told me he fell on his head when he was a kid. That's why he's a Republican. So I worked for AIG back then, and I go back, I go to work, and there was silence. I was getting the silent treatment. I wasn't getting friendly, welcoming like I usually do. I found out then that most of the people who work at AIG are Republicans because they read the newspaper. And so he was working with an outfit actually here in Yorba Linda, and everybody felt sorry for him because of what they read in the newspaper. Next time he calls them back first. And they said, what about your Democratic sister? And he said, my parents told me she was adopted. So it's fun. I mean, it's a fun thing, but it also, because politics is a very dry, frustrating thing when you get involved in it, and you need to put some humor in it. Although we're both from different parties, we supported each other, because what's more important is that things that are important to us, and I'll give you an example. If one of the candidates was running for office, and he was attacked because he received checks from Muslims, and the person who attacked him was a Democrat. And so I get a call from my brother, and he said, I think you need to take care of this situation. So I call the caucuses. In the Democratic Party, you have caucuses. You have Labor Caucus, Arab American Caucus. I'm the co-founder and first chair and current chair of the Arab American Caucus at the California Democratic Party. I co-founded it with the late Mustafa Siyam back in the early 90s. And so I called our friends, the Democrats in the various caucuses, and I said, this elected official, despite him being from the other party, is being attacked for receiving checks from Muslim, and this is unacceptable. And she was going to have a fundraiser co-hosted by the wife of Governor Gray Davis, and that was canceled. And that fundraiser was canceled because CARE and others called and said what she's saying is unacceptable. The same thing happened when one of our Democratic elected official was attacked from a Republican who was running against her. So I made that phone call to my brother and say, she's being attacked because she's friends with the Arabs and Muslims and because she's receiving checks. It's your turn now. And so basically that candidate did not receive the support or the nominations from one of the committees within the Republican Party, Republican Party of Orange County.
All right.
But they used to introduce him, Tom Fuentes, the late Tom Fuentes, the chair of the Republican Party in Orange County, used to introduce him as, here's my friend Rima Nashashibi, whose sister is the vice chair of the Democratic Party in Orange County. And the kid got immediate notoriety, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you still talk to each other?
Yes, on WhatsApp. Okay. He's in Bahrain, I'm here.
All right. So there is nothing wrong in having someone from either party. You can still be brothers and sisters.
Right.
You see how it benefits sometimes. So that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind, that we need to be involved in all parties and we need to involve in everybody, because that's how many other communities do. And not in a fake way, but in a genuine way. When we find ourselves more attracted to one of the parties, it's nothing wrong in saying, you know what, I'll be involved with this party and let my other community members involved with the party that they are okay with it. And there's no reason for us to bash each other or say bad things about each other, because this dirty politics that we see in America and the Congress is very sad to see. We should not have it within our community. But letting me back to, you mentioned few words, and I don't think we really understand it all. What is a caucus? Anyone knows what a caucus is? You've heard that before? We did, right? Can you explain it very well? What is a caucus? What's the structure of the party that when you say the Arab caucus or the delegates or what does that mean? Can you describe to us the structure of the Democratic Party?
Sure, but before I do that, because we're going to talk about the Democratic Party, I would like to acknowledge the mayor of Irvine, Mayor Farah Khan, who's sitting at that table. Wave. Yes. And I would also like to acknowledge Al Jabbar, who's the chief of staff for Supervisor Doug Chafee.
They will be future guests on these shows. So they're here to test it with Rima and see how we're going to grill her and then be ready for the next time when they get on stage. But yes,
I'm a weak female, so please go easy on me. Right?
Oh my goodness. You made me... All right, Miss...
So Al Jabbar was the first Muslim to get elected in Orange County. Am I mistaken or am I right?
Right.
Oh, so, mashallah.
All right.
So before we get that, I think...
Can you just put the mic a little bit close to the middle? I think for recording we need it to be... All right. Let's try it.
So before we get that, I think I want to go back to how I got involved in politics, because we never answered that question. So in '85, I got a call from AAI, the Arab American Institute, after I became a citizen. And they said, we need you to run as a delegate, and we'll get to that, for Jesse Jackson, who was running for president, which is from the congressional district. I said, I don't know how to do that. Can you show me the way? And they said, okay, we'll send you a fax. Back then we had faxes. The younger generation here, I don't think know what a fax is. And so I got a fax and said, you need to do 1, 2, 3. And so we went to the congressional meeting. There was, I remember there was 2 Muslim brothers, Nabil Dajani, the late Nabil Dajani, and Dr. Amin. I think he's a Muslim from India. And it was our first political event. Everybody who was running for delegate from the congressional district has to stand up and give a speech, 3-minute speech about why you're running and why do you think people should vote for you, among all those people who were running. And to our surprise, our first experience, I was elected first on the women, and Dr. Amin was elected first on the men, and Nabil was a third. We got too excited. I mean, this is easy. I mean, that's how easy it was. So we went to the National Convention in Chicago, and we know that Jesse Jackson didn't win. And then I got another call from AAI, and they said, we would like you to run as a delegate to the Assembly District. So now you know we have a congressional district. So each one where we live, our street address determines what is our Assembly District, what's our congressional district, and what's our senatorial district. And that's where the power is, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. So again, I said, I don't know how to do that. Can you tell me? So they sent me another fax. And so I follow the steps, and I go to a house. I still remember the house in Long Beach. And I decided I'd go there early because it's in Belmont Shore, parking and stuff. So I went there early, and they said, please go sit in the other room. I'm like, okay, here we go. And then I hear them saying that they contacted someone who's going to be running against me, but she won't be able to be here. And they mentioned the name, so I knew she's from Cal State Long Beach, and it was a Jewish person to run against me. And I'm like, whoa. So again, we did the same thing. Each one had to speak for 2-3 minutes. And I was elected again, because it turned out that most of the people who voted for me as a delegate to the congressional district were there in the Assembly District. So despite the fact that they found somebody else to run against me, because I told them I'm Palestinian in the congressional district, and so now they said, okay, we're going to have somebody else run against her, but I won again. And so I became chair of the fundraising committee for the old 58th Assembly District. And the politicals in the room will know that. And then you get redistricted. And then we had the 67th Assembly District. And then I became chair of that Assembly District. And then I ran for office in '98. So I was one of the first Arab Americans to run for office for Assembly. And it was from the 67th Assembly District, and it was against Kaaba, who's now Senator Dave Min is running against. And so although Kaaba was being investigated for financial issues, he won because it's name recognition. I became second. They wanted me to change my name to Nash. And I said the whole thing about me running is to encourage other Arab Americans and Muslims to run. So I'm running as Rima Nashashibi. Otherwise, what's the use of running as Rima Nash? And my campaign manager, who decided to run my campaign for free, the late Ray Cordova, who's a labor leader, he offered his services to run my campaign for free. And he said, okay, we're going to put your name on the poster that's going to go on all the streets you see when we have elections. Because you have a last name that's Nashashibi, they're going to think it's Japanese or Asian. We want them to see that you're white. So there's all these gimmicks that they do in politics. So I came in second, and basically that's it. And then I became the vice chair of the Democratic Party in Orange County for 10 years. And I called the community and I said, I think 10 years is enough. Find someone who can run for my seat and we'll get them elected for vice chair. I had 2 takers only. And I interviewed both of them and wanted to interview them again. They were so enthusiastic about the job that they didn't show for the second meeting. So unfortunately, we couldn't have a Muslim or an Arab as a vice chair of the Democratic Party in Orange County. So it's easy, but you have to put in the work. And for example, when I went to my first convention, I had this sign that said Palestinian statehood now. And people wouldn't sit next to me because they said, we don't like that. However, when it was time for the teachers to collect 300 signatures, I forced myself and offered that I help them collect the signature because there was a time limit. And they said, okay, fine, you can help us. And so I helped them collect signatures. And I went to all the APAC people because I said, this is my one and only chance to get them to sign something for me because it's for the teachers. And so they did sign it. And so the next time we went back to the assembly district for our first meeting, they said, which resonated with me and stayed with me all this time, they said, because you helped us, we're going to be there for you. So guess who was standing next to me raising a Palestinian statehood sign the next year?
Teachers.
They were.
And
But-
that is something every single person who ran for election said. Don't expect to go ask people to help you if you have not helped them out first. And sometimes, and we heard that over the past 6-7 months, we want people to come and speak out for Gaza and against what's happening there. But where were we when they were attacked? Where were we during the Black Lives Matter movement? Where were we during the Flint water problem in Michigan? Where were we? So we need to be involved. Where were we when there was parents' rights issues in school districts and all that? So we need to understand how it works. You need to, we say it in Arabic, scratch for me and I'll scratch for you, right? Anyone can say that in Arabic? Scratch for me. I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back later on. So what it means is I will help you in something I believe in. I'm not going to go help someone in something I don't believe in or against my faith. But there are so many causes out there. They are so compatible with our faith, with our values, with our morals. Jump on them, see how you can help and volunteer. And then when we need their help, they will remember that. And this is, by the way, something we are very good at here at the Islamic Center of Yorba Linda. We have very good relationships with the city officials, with the mayor, with the city council members, with the water district, with so many people here because of our work in supporting the causes that they work on. And if you like to be involved in any of those things, please approach Brother Aslam Dada, Sister Alia, anybody who is in the outreach committee, who is doing a lot of good work with the neighbors, with the partners in the city, so whenever we need them, they will be here for us as well. So that is a point that I wanted to comment on before.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was just at an event for Council Member Peggy Wong yesterday. And I did invite her to come today. She's a council member here in Yorba Linda. And unfortunately, she had a prior engagement.
Peggy, you said?
Peggy Wong.
Peggy, yes, absolutely.
Yes. And so elections are coming up, and I really respect Peggy and what she does, and the fact that she works across the aisle with everyone in order to get the job done and help the society, the community at large.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So explain to us some of these secret terminologies that not everyone who is not involved in politics necessarily understand. What is the structure of the party? What does it mean to be a delegate? What is a congressional district? What is assembly district? Because sometimes we speak and we think everyone understands. What does that mean?
Okay.
What does it mean?
Okay. So you have the California Democratic Party, which is the overall arching umbrella. And then you have county central committees.
Hold on. Disclaimer. We will get to the Republican Party later on at another event. Do not take our nonprofit status for the masjid. All right. Go ahead.
One of the parties, you have the overall arching political party, and then you have county central committees, and then constituents, individuals, residents like you and me, run for office, you're on the ballot, to become a member of the county central committee.
So each county, like Orange County,
Yes.
has a centralized or center leadership.
That's one of the silos,
Okay.
county central committees.
Okay.
That's for one specific party. The other party doesn't have a similar structure.
Okay.
Right? And so you run to be a member of the, let's say, Orange County Central Committee. You become a delegate there. And then you also can get appointed. So if you're close to elected officials or candidates, you can also get elected, not just run for office,
Appointed.
but get elected. So the first couple of times I ran for it and I got elected, but then I became too lazy, and then I started calling my friends who are elected officials and candidates saying, would you please appoint me? And so they'll appoint me. So, but you have to put in the work, you have to put in the legwork, you have to get to know them, you have to help them. So this way, when you call them and say, would you please help me and get me appointed to the Orange County Democratic Party Central Committee, then you get appointed.
So how many people in that committee here in Orange County?
Let me see, I'm gonna call a friend.
So is it few people, like 2 people or 100 people?
What's the total number? I forgot.
12 from each district. And how
Yes.
many districts we have in Orange County? Do we know?
6, 7, 8. I know you were talking in another Deen talk. I'm going to use the Imam Malki thing. I don't know the answer to that.
All right. So we have 12 members in each district of that central committee.
6 male and 6
Oh,
females.
it has to be.
Yes, even.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Yes, sir.
so now we have 12 delegates. And I know in the past several years, we have so many Muslims ran for these positions.
Yes.
And I think we had a record number for Muslim delegates, I
Yes.
think 4 years ago or 8 years ago. I don't remember exactly when. But we had very high number of Muslim delegates. 8 years ago, right? How many? Like
We had like 32, I think.
30.
That was for the assembly district. Though.
That's okay.
So that's the county central committee, right? And they report, and they have elections, and then they send delegates to the California Democratic Party central committee. So you have the California Democratic Party, and then you have the executive board of the California Democratic Party. So you run either to become a delegate or an executive board member. So as a chair of the Arab American Caucus at the California Democratic Party, I'm officially a member of the executive board, and we were there in San Diego last.
What is the caucus?
The caucus. Okay. So with the California Democratic Party, there's different caucuses. It's like
Clubs?
Groups.
Groups?
Groups. Call them clubs, okay? You establish a club, and some of it is around ethnic, right? And then what's not allowed is to have a caucus based on religion. So we have the Arab American Caucus, the Black Caucus, the African, the Hispanic, the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, and you have the Senior Caucus, you have the Children Caucus, you have Disability Caucus, you have Business and Professional Caucus.
So each
it's
caucus is promoting a certain cause or a certain group of people.
ethnicity, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how many caucuses do we have in California? Or is it national?
No, this is the California Democratic Party. And so this is the same in other states.
Okay.
And please here correct me if I'm wrong. And so, I'm good so far?
Yeah,
okay, thank you. Thank God.
All right.
So, but then you have the assembly districts, right? So we said we have assembly districts. If you're not confused yet, it's going to get more confusing. So we have the assembly districts, we have...
So the state has two, you're talking about assembly and senates, right? Of the state, that's what you're talking about.
The state,
assembly?
yes, we have assembly and senate.
So you know how we have Congress in DC, where it has members of Congress
That's
and members of
the
Senate?
federal,
That's
yes.
federal. In the state, we have two bodies. One is called state senates and state senators and state assembly members. When we go to DC, to Sacramento for Muslim Day on the Capitol, and we go meet with elected officials, we divide ourselves into two groups. Some groups will go meet with the senators, some groups will go meet with the assembly members. And each one of us, we have a senator who represents us here locally, statewide, not in DC. We have a local state senator who represents us, and we have a local assembly member who represents us. That's in the capital of the state. And each are two separate elections. Many people who run for local positions like city mayors and city council, eventually they want to grow into higher position, they run for assembly member they run for state senate. And
Well,
if you remember,
they do that. Sorry for interrupting. They do that because we have term limit in California, unfortunately, which is the worst thing that ever happened. Because they felt that we, the voters, are not intelligent enough to decide who to vote for, who do we elect to office, and who do we take out of office. So they decided they want to do term limits. And you got out the good and the bad with that, because now you can only serve a certain period of time. And don't ask me, because it's different for each seat.
But you like it to be a dictatorship, like Arab countries, where people stay forever in their position, they don't get out, and they run and they pass the elections by 99.99% voting.
You have elections here. It's not dictatorship.
Yeah.
But don't force a term limit, because if you have a good elected officials, you want them to stay in office.
You're right.
So basically, thank you. You have the best thing you could do is you go to the website, and what's the website? And then you get all your elected officials. It tells you who your supervisor is. It tells you who the governor, your lieutenant governor, all the way down from the governor all the way to city council. And then this way you know who your elected officials are. And we need to become involved.
Is it important that each one of us know who's their elected officials?
Of course.
Well,
I mean,
how many of you know all your elected officials? Who knows your state senate representative? That's sad. Right?
Oh, Farah, good. 2, Al, we have 2. Any more?
This is important. I mean, sometimes we laugh at, those talk shows on TV when they find people walking in the street and they ask him who's the Secretary of State, and they have no idea, right? Or who is the Vice President, they have no idea.
Who's the Secretary of California?
The Secretary?
I'm asking you, yes.
What Secretary of California? There's no Secretary.
I'm asking you.
Yeah,
of course, Dr. Shirley Weber.
I don't know even that position exists. What's the Secretary of California? I know the governor. I met with him last month. But I didn't know that there's a position called Secretary of California.
Of course.
See, we learn something new every day. All right. So it's good for us to know, first of all, who are our city mayor. What's her name, our mayor? What's the name of our city mayor?
Is it Beth Haney? Is it Peggy Wong? Is it Janet?
Anyone heard the name Tara Campbell? She's been here many times, right? Who was the previous mayor? What's his name?
No, wait. Before we go to the previous mayor, you know Tara Campbell? You know what other job she has?
Yes.
Let them tell us. What other job does she have? She's the chief of staff for Supervisor Don Wagner.
Yep.
Who's the supervisor in this district. So if you need something from the county, and because you're in this district, Tara is your key. That's how knowing them is important. Let's say you have a business. You want to become a vendor for Orange County because they have, I'm on their email list. I get all these emails saying, okay, we have this opening. We need somebody to do land development. We need somebody to do this. We need somebody to do that. So this way, as a business person, you can submit a tender for those.
So let me
jobs
explain
that are
something,
open.
because you're way advanced compared to all of us. The city has a city council, and the head of that city council, we call them what? Mayor.
And
the county,
is it volunteer or
let me just explain, Doctor. You're getting us ahead of the game. So the city has a mayor. The state has what? Governor. The county has something called Board of Supervisors. Okay, and the Board of Supervisors are in Orange County, I think 5 of them.
5.
And if you are in your Belinda, your Board of Supervisor representative is Don Wagner, who came here a few months ago, and we had a big fight with him here. I don't know if you remember. And his chief of staff is our mayor. Now, if you live in Fullerton or Brea, your board of supervisors, chief of staff, who's that guy? Any idea?
Anaheim.
He's sitting right there. Raise your hand. Mr. Al-Jabbar is the chief of staff. What's his name, the board of supervisors?
Doug Chafee.
Doug Chafee. So he's the board. So if you live in Fullerton or Brea and you have any situation with you need anything from the county, Al is here for you, and we will get to learn his story sometime soon, inshallah, as well. All right. So
Al is phenomenal.
yeah, we'll talk about him when it's time. Now let's talk about how phenomenal you are right now. Let's continue. So
Okay, I won't stop you.
So
Go ahead.
you had challenge being Palestinian, being Arab, being Muslim. What about being a woman? Did you have any challenge getting into politics because of that?
Knowing me, do you think I would?
No. I mean, what is the difficulties that you face as a woman?
Okay. I have not faced a difficulty as a woman because my parents, the way we grew up in Jerusalem, they were treating, I have two brothers and my oldest brother passed away unfortunately at 52. And so there's just the two of us, but basically it was two boys and one girl.
No, I meant from the others, from people whom you're going
But
into.
let me explain. Yeah. It goes back to family, right? And all of us were treated equally. I didn't do the beds for my brothers. Each one of us did their own bed. Everybody worked in the kitchen. Everybody did everything. So I grew up knowing I have no limitations.
That's how you went Republican, by the way. That's why Tarif went Republican. You made him make your bed.
No, that he never did, but I'll give you that. That he never did. But see, it's knowing that you don't have limitations then. I mean, the first time I knew about racism, not in the Middle East, the first time I faced racism when I rented a home that I had, I was in real estate back then, to an African-American doctor. And I got threats from my neighbor. They slashed my tires. And I'm like, why? And they said, because he's black. I'm like, what does that mean? We don't see color. Arabs, Muslims, we don't see color. So that was my first experience with racism, was here in this country, unfortunately.
Okay, so when you wanted to run, nobody told you, oh, you're a woman, you cannot do that. No one told you. Didn't feel that in politics, even as far as 85.
89, 98. Oof.
No.
Yeah, I'm not that old. 98. It was 98.
Okay.
No, they were concerned because of my name, because of my last name. They made Rima so big and Nashashibi so small. And they had the white face there. So there's always these gimmicks. Which brings us to something else. We should all think about running for office. Why? Because we need to have representations in all these aspects, being it the city, the county, the assembly, the Senate, the state, federal. Because if you're not at the table, that's my favorite thing. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we need to have representation. They need to get to know us. They need to know what's important to us, what are our values, what are our principles, what do we care about? We care about education, we care about healthcare, right? We care about our profession, we care about businesses, we take our taxes. And we also care about Palestine. We're not a one-issue community. We care about all these things because what's difference between here and the country, some of the countries we came from, is that here we have the right to vote and we can exercise that right to vote. In other countries, you may not be able to exercise that vote, and even if you voted, the result is going to be 99.9% for whoever is running for office.
Yeah.
So this is a privilege, right? And it's our divine duty as Muslims to make sure we're involved in social justice.
Absolutely.
right? And so we have to get involved.
So that gets me to a question that I would like to answer. I mean,
Just one?
no. The question is that people sometimes would say being part of the elections, whether voting or running, is haram, is not something that we should be doing. And unfortunately, that was a very big opinion a couple of decades ago. Fortunately, this has been changing. Many people are realizing that is absolutely wrong way of looking at things. If we are not able to, if we want to change things, we have to do it in the right way. We have to be part of the system and be part of the Democratic Party and the election process. With raise of hand, how many of us voted just a few months ago in the last midterm elections? Good. That's a good number. Alhamdulillah, we had a caravan of cars from here. Fairuz was one of the main organizers. We went into a rally from here to the voting center, was in the library, in Yorba Linda Yarborough Library. And the number of Muslims there was beautiful. It was so obvious. As I mentioned before, a few weeks ago, I was in a training about how to run for elections, how to run for an office.
Oh, you have political
I
aspirations.
don't. So I can teach. So I can talk to people. So I came to realize one of the things that they said. They asked us a question: whom do you think the largest voting bloc in the last elections? And everyone started saying things, and nobody got the right answer. The right answer was the largest voting united bloc in the last elections was the senior citizens, people who are older than the age of 65. And we were shocked because we're seeing people in demonstrations and they said young people don't vote. They are so active on social media. They're so active in walking into rallies and demonstrations in the streets. But when it comes to the elections, they do not go for several reasons. Some of them, they don't see any hope in any of that. Some of them, they don't see any benefit. Some of them are too lazy because they want everything on their phone. They cannot actually go to the place or mail a ballot. So we need to change that within our community. We need to understand that we need to all of us be involved when it comes to that. And it's absolutely not haram unless you're voting for something that's haram. Unless you're voting for a bill that is haram. Unless you're voting for a candidate who's horribly bad. So we have to be, and we're not going to be able to make any difference until we understand how important is that.
So let me explain, to add to what you said about the senior vote. We helped in the campaign of Senator Joe Dunn back when. And what got him elected, each of us, I went again with the labor leader, Ray Cordova, and we all picked, they had plans that we were supposed to give to everyone, to women over 65. And we went and delivered those plans. You hear precinct walking? We did plant walking to all women over 65. He got elected as a senator. So you have to investigate, and I think all of us should think about running for office because that's the only way we can advocate for our faith, to advocate for ourselves, to advocate for our ethnicity, what's important to us. Because this way, when you will have less Islamophobia if you're involved, because people get to know you and you become the ambassador of your own community in all these places, whether it's the city, the county, wherever. I mean, so that's why we become an ambassador. So we advocate for our community.
You know the statistic that said when they asked, when they did a survey in America and they said, they tried to find out who has negative opinion about Muslims. And it was shocking, 25% of Americans had a negative opinion about Muslims. About 40% said, I don't want to live next to a Muslim. Amazingly, most of the people who voted or expressed negative opinion never met a Muslim before. Those who knew a Muslim and met a Muslim had completely different opinion. When their teacher is a Muslim, when their doctor is a Muslim, when their accountant is a Muslim, when their neighbor is a Muslim, and they actually interact with them, they have completely different opinion. right? One of the famous news TV personalities, he said in a very beautiful way in one of the interviews, he said, if a Muslim family moves next to your house, you're lucky, right? Because your kids will become better at their school, they'll become, right? It's nice to see people realize that because of our involvement. And when we become more involved when it comes to politics, when it comes to positions, we can make also a difference. Now, some people say, if I run, I'm embarrassed, I'm not gonna win, I'm gonna spend time and money and put my name. That's fine. Let your name be more familiar on these signs on the streets. Let people, when they walk by and see the name Abdullah or Muhammad, they become more used to it. Now, if I tell you, if you pass by a sign that says, vote for so-and-so Lee, would that make any problem for you? We got used to it. But 20 years ago, that would have been a major issue, right?
You know, one of the presidents here in the US ran for office 7 times before he got elected. Somebody sent that to me when I lost that election because they wanted me to run again. And so you need to have the right resume when you run for office. So we have a fantastic candidate here who ran before Farah did. And he came and he said, I would like to meet with you because I'm running for office. And I said, okay, I'll meet with you, but I need to know your resume. And he had the perfect resume. Al, would you tell them what was on your resume? Because it wasn't just, okay, I go to my masjid, I'm a member of my masjid, I'm a member of, let's say, the Arab American Architects and Engineers. There's a candidate that I met that all his activity was around the Arab community. They've never done or interacted or done work with the larger community. So how can people get to know you? But
we will at his turn, inshallah, within the next few weeks, we will spend a lot of time learning from Al, his
But he
story.
has the right way.
Absolutely.
He had labor unions. He had everything on that resume. He was involved within the larger community. And so it's not just his Muslim community or the Sri Lankan community that he was involved in. It was the larger. Same thing with Mayor Farah Khan. I mean, how do they get elected to office? They get involved in the larger community. So when you become active, you empower your whole community, and it would also help you because you build your network. It's good for your business. It's good for Muslims, for the Ummah. It's good for you personally. And so that's how you get, when you get involved, you get empowered.
Beautiful. So inshallah, that's a teaser for you. When you see Al's name and Farah Khan's name on the flyer, whether the next month or the month after it, make sure that you come and attend, because I invited Al Jabbar last week to my Young Leaders program, and he spent a couple of hours just talking about his story and how he got involved. It was very exciting, very interesting. So that's another lesson. We learn how to be involved in the community and the society if we want to run for elections. Now, we do have time restrictions, so we would like to open it for questions right now. If you have any question to Rima about anything that's related to politics or something you need to understand, and hopefully some of these elections will cover some of the points that we did not cover yet. So do you have any questions? If otherwise, we'll keep going with a few more before we close for Isha.
So when you get involved, one more thing, and then when you get involved, you get to be known, not just within your own community, but nationwide. When the State Department went to AAI, the Arab American Institute, and they said, we want a woman who can speak Arabic, who knows politics, who can train Palestinian women how to run for office. And they said, Rima. So I had the privilege.
Here or over there?
Over there. So I had the privilege of going to my home country, to Palestine, as a guest of the State Department. I mean, when you're involved politically here, it's concerning when you go back home. But when you have the State Department at your back, then you know you go and you're protected. So I trained the women, Palestinian women, how to run for office. In addition, they sent me, I was asked to go to Saudi Arabia to trained the women there on how to run for office before the historical election. And was really mind-opening for me. And 21 of them won. Remember the historical elections when they participated for the first time, either as voters, registered to vote, and voted and ran for office. So it was phenomenal, the things that you get involved in when you get involved. And now, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll
Question, what made you register as a Democrat in 1985?
Question, I'm going to repeat it for the YouTube viewers. What made you register as a Democrat in 1985 instead of other parties? At that time, by the way, it was not the popular thing among the Arabs and the Muslims. But if you remember, until the year 2000, majority of the Muslims were voting Republicans. You remember that? Because when Bush and Al Gore were running against each other, majority of Muslims were, actually they were imams in the khutbah al-Jum'ah saying it's haram to vote to Al Gore. You have to vote for Bush. There were Muslims going out in the streets with flyers, George Bush, Muslims for George Bush. So that time changed from now till, but he's right, that's a good question. Back in 85 or 90, whenever you decided.
Social issues. I'm for social justice because when I was a student at the American University in Beirut, I was involved. Politically, I was the elected secretary of the Arts and Science Student Society, but I was also part of what's called the Civil Welfare League, and I was involved for orphanages and mentally challenged institutions. So I was always for social justice, and I felt the Democratic Party has the values for me. Because if you get involved, if you get active, then you get elected. In the other party, it depends who you know, how much money you have, and that sort of a thing. So my brother had his business, and that's why he joined the Republican Party. But I wanted to change the world.
As a Muslim community, we relate to the Democratic Party when it comes to social justice, which means equality, minorities' rights, immigrants' rights, all these kinds that brings equality, labor rights. So this is something part of our faith, right? And when we find connection with the Republican Party, we more it comes to family values. That, you know what, conservatism when it comes to the
we
family.
have family values too. You can't
it's
say
not
that.
a democratic
No.
debate now.
No,
But,
everyone has family
listen.
values. Are you saying Farah Al and I don't have family values?
No. We're saying how Muslim community look at these two parties when it comes to that. So back then, you're right, they were looking at it as more of that. But when you come to people who want to promote social justice and people's rights, we'll find more people leaning towards that side. Go ahead.
The gentleman here.
Okay, I just realized that we're being recorded, so maybe I shouldn't ask. Why would you vote for any of these presidential candidates? They're both responsible and aiding and abetting what's going on.
The question, good question. Why would you vote for any presidential candidate when they're all involved in things that we don't like and things we don't support?
Wouldn't that be haram?
Wouldn't that be haram?
No, because it's your right to vote, and as a Muslim, social justice is a main issue, and it's a duty for us as Muslims. So what you do when you look at presidential candidates, you look at their policy positions, you look at their character, you look at their electability, and other things. I even went to GPT because I know you did a Deen talks about artificial intelligence, and you called it fake intelligence. So I said,
It wasn't me.
I went to GPT and I said, why should Muslims get involved in politics? And GPT responded and said, yes, they should get involved in politics like any people with any religion, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, oh. And then I said, who should Muslims vote for in the next presidential election? And they said, that's a personal decision that has to be made based on.
So-
But Muslims should vote for the person for the presidential candidate or the incumbent or whatever who does not talk about Islamophobia, who speaks against Islamophobia, who does not have a travel ban against Muslims.
So we had a debate last election.
No, I'm not advocating for anyone, because again, you have to look at their policy decision. You have to look at, I'm not advocating what I have with me, I'm not advocating for anyone. Because we know that President Biden has sent so many bombs and arms and money to Israel that created the genocide that is happening in Gaza. That is unacceptable.
So,
right.
So the question is...
But you look at both of them and you go down the list and you see... And if not, I can share with you the ADC, the American Arab Anti-Discrimination, did a poll, and they found out that 25% voted for Dr. Jill Stein of Arab Americans, and 7% will be voting for Biden. Yeah. And so that should tell you where...
So to answer the question whether it's halal or haram, you have the option, and I don't want to tell you if it's halal or haram, you have the option to vote for other positions in your local elections. You don't have to boycott the whole elections if you don't feel comfortable voting for a president. You can simply keep it empty and vote for everything else, right? Because I understand you cannot force anyone to go and vote for someone who might cause a killing of a brother or a sister or a fellow human, or someone who goes out and say bad things about us. Yeah, you cannot sleep at night. I voted for this guy and this is what he's doing. Forget about that. There are so many positions that you can vote for. So don't let that point, because of the time, don't let that point prevent you from registering, from being part of the process. Just leave it empty and vote for anything else. You don't have to vote and fill out all of them. Go ahead.
Question, how can get teens to get involved in politics and get it interesting for them? Most families push their kids to be doctors, attorneys, whatever, but they don't push them for politics. How do you make it interesting?
How do you make it interesting for teens and youngsters to get involved into politics and encourage them to have that as a career instead of just focusing on a few other careers, doctors and engineers? That was the question.
The parents have to encourage them and support them. Because if they get hired, for example, and Farah and they will tell you, let's say you're working for a state senator, the payment, your wage is not that much. If you're working for an assembly member, it's not that much. What the other side does is that they supplement their income. So we need to encourage the younger generation to become involved, knowing that it's not going to pay well, like a doctor, an engineer, and so on, an attorney, but we need them because we need to be at the table so we're not on the menu. I have a nonprofit, and we have a practicum with USC, the Keck School of Medicine, and I have students whose main thing is that they would like to become involved in advocacy. They would like to become involved in making policy and creating policy. And they want to see it from scratch, how they write their legislation all the way to getting it passed or not. We had one of those students basically contact one of the cities, submitted the resolution to the cities, and saw it all the way until that city voted for it. So that's how you encourage them. And election these days is happening on social media, and there's no way we compete. We can compete with the younger generation on social media. They're just phenomenal. I mean, that's what helped the students at the student encampments.
So one of the things that was mentioned, and maybe nobody paid attention to it, or not many people paid attention to it, she said the other side do supplement income. What does that mean? And I'll be open. When we meet with Congress members, and it happens a lot, we go and meet and sit down with a congressman or a congresswoman, someone from AIPAC will be sitting down. someone from APAC who is one of, it doesn't say I'm an APAC, doesn't have a badge, but he is a staff member of that Congress office.
He or she?
He or she is a staff member of that congressman or congresswoman's office. And they are attorneys. They graduated with a law degree. What are they doing with such a job, getting paid 20%, 30% of what they could have made if they go out and work as attorneys? So I came to realize that APAC does subsidize. It will give you a car, it will subsidize your residence. Just make sure that you work in that position. And we need to start evolving as a community and think about how we can support young, smart, intelligent people to accept to work as staffers in a congressman office or congresswoman office and subsidize their in a way or another.
Let me compliment what you said. I have a friend who became a district director for a congresswoman. The first day he was in office, he got a call saying, congratulations on your new position, we would like to come and visit you. It was APAC, basically. So they know the staff who gets appointed or who gets hired, and they go visit them, and they take them for tours. But he had a picture of Hanan Ashrawi on his wall. So that meeting didn't go well. But that's how it is, you know? And we also hear from members of Congress who say, for example, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, I knew her back when I became involved with the California Democratic Party. She always votes the right way despite us. She votes the right way on our issues. Remember, she ran for the federal Senate and she lost. It was a few of them who's running and she lost that. But she said, Rima, where are you and your community when I vote on these issues? You never call and say you're doing the right job. Thank you for voting this way. I get 300 calls telling me, how dare you vote that way? So we need to be there to protect those elected
what
officials.
What does it take to pick up the phone and
who
call,
vote the right way?
I mean, I'll finish with this story. Many years ago.
Let me finish. Then you can. But the other thing is another congresswoman said, she said, Rima, you only react to things. Your community only reacts to things. You're not there visiting us on a regular basis. And that's why now I'm training the seasoned and the younger generation on how to meet with members of Congress. But I only accept them in my training if they commit to doing it for the long haul. Because we can't go there one time and we expect them to vote for Palestine and ending sending money to Israel. It doesn't happen. This is the reality. You have to be there every month, every quarter. And so we even did role playing and we went and visited, and mashallah, the meeting went very well. But the commitment, we have to commit. We cannot be reactive all the time. We have to commit to do it for the long haul. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem, because they're texting me from the prayer hall. They need to do the prayer. So just quickly, we cannot emphasize on the importance of being involved, being engaged. Every session, every month, will complement the discussion that we started today. We'll learn about people's experiences and we'll learn about how important it is to be involved and how to do it, inshallah. I hope you found a lot of benefit in today's discussion with Rima Nashashibi. We thank you very much for being with us.